Hey, Eric.
Eric.
Good. Quick question. The fee schedule, did you get my last little note on that?
Oh, I didn't see that. You updated it?
Yes.
Okay.
I put my little note in chat, I think. I found, in addition to the errors that Bruce mentioned, I found one or two other errors as well. A copy of the correct one is now on the website. It's also in the Dropbox, but any paper copies the select board have would be not accurate.
Okay.
I don't know if you have time to print one off.
Yeah, I might be able to send one to the printer here. Run down real quick.
And Gordon will not be joining us.
Yes.
So.
Favorite man.
Hello there.
Joy.
Hello there. Flying through the door 15 minutes ago, and hail me like it was on the phone. You're exactly.
Rick, I won't be able to print it from this computer. I forget I don't have VPN set up on it. So I can't reach the printer.
And I can't do it either.
I can put it on the screen when we get to that item, and so everyone can see it.
Oh, I could do that too, yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
There we go.
It might be easier for me to do it.
Okay. Problem solved.
Okay.
Couldn't hear you.
You got your red one? I got your white one.
Oh, you do?
I feel like also that.
Actually had 4 out of 5. The 5th one will not be with us tonight. So it's 7 o'clock and I don't have a gavel, but I'll call the meeting to order. And of course, the first thing on the agenda are the minutes of May 19th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the minutes of May 19, 2020 with any amendments thereto.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Page 1. Page 2. Just one small typo under number 6, the second paragraph, the third line from the bottom of that paragraph, the association may be agree, the B should be struck. That's just a typo.
Mhm. Okay.
And under number 7, the second paragraph talks about there were comments from the public against the use of herbicide. There were also comments in favor of the use of the herbicide.
Okay.
Anything else on page 2? Page 3. And page 4. So here are no other corrections. All those in favor of approving the minutes of May 19th, 2020, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3. And Ted, you're abstaining, I presume?
I abstain.
Thank you. So we've carried that 3-0-1. And we'll move on then to public comment. Is there anyone on the line for public comment, Eric?
Yep, no one on the line besides staff and members of the media.
Okay. So we're a little early, but we can move on then to the fourth item, which is the emergency health order hearing. Is Cindy on the line?
But Terry, I might suggest waiting for 7:20. I know the person named in the order was planning to join at
Okay.
7:20 for it.
Okay, then we'll move on to, how about item number 8, the Independence Day fireworks celebration. That's Eric, that's you.
Yep, and I guess for this one as well, Todd was planning to join us, and
Okay.
he was planning to join us a little later.
Okay. How about the financial management questionnaire? Shirley on the line, or?
Yep, we could do that one.
Okay, then we'll move on to number 10, financial management questionnaire. And it's really pretty simple, but if Shirley is ready to address this, we can do that.
Yep, Shirley, I'm just going to unmute you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. So I completed this for the current fiscal year. I also included the changes with the new treasurer position. There is nothing in the financial management questionnaire that in completing it, Deb Beckett did it last year, that I find that we have any lack of controls that aren't in place or that should be in place. Any questions from you?
This is one of those very straightforward types of forms that we're required to sign each year. Anybody else with questions? Seeing none, then a motion is needed for this.
I'd move to acknowledge receipt of the financial management questionnaire for fiscal year 2020.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff second.
Any
That
discussion
slight
on
delay cost you, Ted.
There you go.
Next time.
Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's unanimous. We can probably can't do the permit fee schedule yet, or the user fee. How about 5 Tree Hill Management Plan, item number 13. This is one that we discussed 2 weeks ago. We put it on hold for approval until we saw whether there was any input from the public. We're told that there had been no comments from the public, and I'd be looking for a motion to approve the plan update.
I'd move to approve the 5 Tree Hill Management Plan as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
And
We do have one from Ted. Any discussion on that?
Yeah. no. Good job on the Melinda's part.
Yes, it was. All those in favor of the motion then say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands.
Aye.
I have 4 hands, so we're unanimous on that one as well. The next item is the Judicial Bureau list. And Eric, I think you're on that one.
Yep, this is an annual update to name our officers who can be named on our Judicial Bureau list. It's if someone is charged with a violation of a town ordinance, these are folks that can serve those orders and also be called upon to testify against them. It's an annual update we do. We just have some changes from in our police officers and our town treasurer. There's a memo before you, and I'm just looking for a motion to approve these changes, and I'll submit them accordingly.
Any questions for Eric?
Just quick question, Eric. I'm not disagreeing at all. I'm just curious why the treasurer has some sort of judicial responsibility.
I believe it has to do with a collection of fees. I'd have to get some clarity on that, but it's part of the form to fill out for the bureau list.
Okay. I mean, again, not disagreeing. I just was, police officers, I totally get.
Sure.
Treasurer, I wasn't so sure about.
As was there in the past as well.
Yep, I see Deb. Yeah.
Yep. If there's no further questions, then a motion is in order for this.
I'd move to approve the Vermont Judicial Bureau designation of municipal officials.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Raise your hand. 4 votes yes, so we're good to go on that one as well. Looks like we'll be doing manager's report at this point. Rick, you
I better unmute myself then. Actually, since Shirley is still in the room, I see, perhaps we can have her give our financial report, because, and then I have just a brief matter to touch base on in the rest of my report.
good. Okay. Shirley,
With us?
You can hear me again?
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
So I'm just, again, going to point out the things that are different from the last month's report. So we received our third sales and use and rooms and meals tax payment, and the payment was $37,000 less than the payment of the same time last year. So not good news, but the first 2 quarters were ahead of what we projected, so offsetting that right now. We will see a reduction in or we may not meet the recreation revenue budget. The campers, with the change in protocol, Todd has noted he's going to have about 50 campers this year versus 100, assuming we fill those 50 slots. The Parks and Rec and the library budget look under budget in regards to their expenses, but it's really because we just made the payment to the school district for the rental of the facilities for Parks and Recs and for the library land, so that those will true up at the end of May. And other than that, I think most of the rest of there's nothing that's changed significantly for the water, sewer, and stormwater budgets. I mean, they continue to be ahead of budget in the revenue, but because of the big projects, the two hotels, Allen Brook Development and Snyder's Creek, with Snyder with Creek's Edge project has continued to generate excess fees compared to budget.
Okay.
And that is it.
Thank you. Questions from the board?
Nope. Good job. Thank you, Shirley.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shirley. So moving on, I wanted to touch base on some personnel matter. We have started the process of recruiting for a new fire chief. As you know, he is planning to retire, well, was originally planning to retire July 1st. He has expressed the willingness to continue on for a little bit longer as we begin the search process for a new chief. We've timed the process such that we just started fairly recently. The intent is to move it along far enough so that once the select board select a new manager, that individual can be involved in the final stages of the decision process for the fire chief. We wanted to get that process along far enough, though, so that there's no big delay as there's a changeover in leadership. So far, we have 7 applicants for the position, and we completed a fairly comprehensive profile for the position. And a big part of that was we conducted, and when I say we, it was Eric and myself, we interviewed 16 of current staff, both administrative staff, career staff, call staff, and used that input to help identify some of the key issues within the department, as well as the key characteristics that the employees would like to see in the new chief. And I think that profile will be instructive for both the applicants, because we will be sharing with them, as well as anyone involved on the interview side of things, where interview panelists and that kind of thing. We haven't set that piece of it up yet. I think that's where I would like to get the new manager involved, and it should work out okay. The deadline for applications is June 12th, and we've already begun the screening process. So we'll have things in pretty good shape for the next person coming along that will be involved in that decision process. And that's all I had. Eric, did you have anything under manager's report?
I would just add our community mask making project's going really well. We've probably collected over 1,000 completed masks right now. I dropped off to one community member the 5th kit that she was willing to sew today. So it's been a great response. And we have a number of masks we've given to staff, and we have them available for the public now. And we'll have more once I get them cleaned and sanitized. So it's going really well. A great community story.
Good job.
Did you want to mention anything about the grant, or is that too soon till we get more information?
I'm not sure which grant.
That's a good sign.
Involving the planning department?
Oh, I was going to let Matt discuss that.
Okay. Then that's all we have this evening.
Okay. Nice.
Thank you. We can take care of a couple of things under other business, perhaps, before we do the hearing. And we do have a couple of, we have 2 motions that would need to be made for the outside consumption permit and a delegation of authority. And Rick, you had given us actually Eric gave us a memo on that.
I can summarize it briefly here. It's a situation we're faced with where the state has allowed these provisional licenses to establishments that don't have regular outdoor consumption permits. So these provisional licenses expire at midnight on June 12th. And the state dictated the process a little different than usual. The state approves these and the business can operate for outdoor consumption. The town doesn't need to approve that piece of it up to June 12th. So we're looking at the runway after June 12th for businesses to continue to provide this service during our altered operational time here. But then also think about, we don't want to necessarily grant a permanent outdoor consumption permit for folks because there's additional fees involved and it would need a closer look. So I worked with staff to find a way for this to work and to also have no interruption between board meetings if we get additional applicants here before June 12th. So what we would do is we'd ask the board to approve what's referred to as an occasional outdoor consumption permit. And the one before you tonight is for the 99 restaurant. This service would be daily until August 31st from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. And to coincide with that, we would have them have a town special event permit approved that would cover the outdoor seating piece of it. And you'll have a motion tonight to also consider to waive the $45 fee for that piece of it. So the first motion you have to consider is for this outdoor consumption piece for the 99 restaurant, and then delegating authority to the chair and the manager to approve these, so we don't get in a situation where a restaurant would face a disruption between now and June 12th or after June 12th.
And just to be clear, they're already doing this, correct? 99's already doing this. So
Yep.
we're just continuing on as normal.
Yep, that's correct. They didn't have an outdoor consumption before. They received this provisional license. The state granted them permission, and this would just allow that to carry on past June 12th to August 31st without interruption.
Thank you.
Eric, the question I have is the August 31st date. There's a chance that the emergency order that's, requiring restrictions, social distancing will go beyond August 31st. So there's the potential that the August 31st date, we may want actually these, I don't know if we should call them a provisional approvals to go beyond August 31st. So is there a different way in which we can state the deadline? Is there some way maybe to tie it to the governor's executive order that would, when the executive order is rescinded?
I would rather wait and have that discussion on August 31st or in the beginning, like end of July. I wouldn't be in favor of having that kind of language out there now. That's just kind of going in the ether. I would rather pick this up again if we thought that it wasn't going to be continued, and then give them further authority for X amount of time.
Okay. What I was just I was just trying to avoid, having to address this again, at the end of the summer,
But
because we may need to.
I discussed it with staff, and I also touched base with the applicant, trying to think of
in the ether.
some date we can put in place here. And they were set to the August 31st with the understanding that we could extend it if that's the approach the board wants to take.
Yeah, I don't particularly have a strong opinion one way or the other. It's the avoiding duplicate work I was trying to avoid.
Sure.
Any other questions for Eric? So I'd be willing to get a motion for the first part of it.
You okay with the 31st, Jeff?
Yeah, we're fine to go with it.
I'd move to approve an occasional use outdoor consumption permit for the 99 restaurant until August 31st, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 4. Okay. The second motion.
I'd move to delegate authority to approve outside consumption permits during the COVID-19 state of emergency to the chair of the select board and town manager on the condition that staff first approve a town special event permit for the permit applicant.
Is there a second?
Second.
Sorry, discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. You mentioned another motion that we would need to do, Eric, about the $45 permit fee. I don't see one.
Yeah, we have that under the permit fees piece of your agenda.
Oh, okay.
We'll consider later.
Okay. Tricky there, Eric.
Okay, that takes care of that business for the time being. It's 20 after now, and we can go to opening the hearing on the health order. And so I will do that at this point, open the meeting for the hearing. And our first witness is the town health officer, Cindy Thurston. Is Cindy on the line now?
Yep, I'm connecting her right now. We'll
Okay.
see her momentarily. Cindy, you'll just need to unmute and enable your video camera, lower left-hand corner. There's Cindy.
Can you hear us?
I can.
Good, I can hear you.
Good.
So before I ask you to give your evidence, I need to swear you in. And so I will give you the oath. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So the floor is yours to present the evidence regarding the health officer, health order.
Thank you. An emergency health order was issued on Friday, May 29th to the tenants residing at 3173 St. George Road and Julie Coolidge. Since the emergency health order was issued, I have learned additional information which I will present tonight, and I request the board, when considering to issue a health order, name Julie Coolidge only in the order and not the tenants of 3173 St. George Road.
Okay.
So I'll go on to the findings of fact. They are as follows. Donald L. Bevins was until recently the owner of a house and property at 3173 St. George Road in Williston. The town issued a zoning violation to Donald L. Bevins on February 22nd, 2019, requiring him to cease renting rooms and clean up trash on the property. The violation was appealed to the Developmental Review Board and upheld on April 23rd, 2019. The town then filed an enforcement action in the Environmental Division of Superior Court and is awaiting a final ruling. The house on the property is without adequate smoke detectors. The lack of smoke detectors put the tenants at risk of death or injury in case of fire. The house is infected with bugs, including cockroaches. The bugs compromise the health of everyone living in the house. All operable windows in the house do not contain screens. Screens are required for operable windows used for ventilation. The Williston Board of Health issued a health order to Donald L. Bevins on October 16, 2019, requiring adequate smoke and carbon monoxide detectors to be installed, fire extinguishers to be installed, the home to be professionally exterminated, tenants residing in campers on the property to move, and screens to be installed in all operable windows. The October 16th health order required Mr. Bevins to notify the town when the extermination was to take place. He never did so. The health officer performed an inspection on November 22nd, 2019, and found all violations had not been resolved. Mr. Bevins' daughter, Julie Coolidge, indicated that all violations were in the process of being rectified. There is no evidence, however, that they have been resolved. As of the health officer's last inspection on January 10th, 2020, the issues regarding fire extinguishers and tenants residing in campers have been resolved. The remaining issues, lack of screens, lack of smoke, and carbon monoxide detectors and bugs, have not been resolved at that time. The health officer has not conducted any additional inspections inside the property due to the state of emergency from the COVID-19 virus. On the available information, the violations regarding lack of screens, lack of smoke and carbon monoxide detectors, and bugs continue to exist. Donald L. Bevins died on May 7th, 2020. Since Mr. Bevins' death, trash and recycling are being dumped in the yard, plainly visible from outside the property. The health officer received a complaint from a budding property owner, John Davis, of 3193 St. George Road on May 21st, and performed a visual inspection from his property. Multiple garbage bags were observed around the home, along with piles of bottles. In addition, mattresses, furniture, and stacks of tires were observed. Mr. Davis of 3193 St. George Road reported to the health officer that he observed people continuing to live at 3173 St. George Road following Mr. Bevins' death. Mr. Davis has observed occupants putting bags of trash in the yard outside the house and seeing trash bags torn open with the contents spread about the yard. The health officer learned from a phone conversation with a tenant on May 27th, 2020, there are 5 tenants currently staying at the property. It was also communicated that the house remains infested with bugs, the conditions are filthy, the porch is full of trash, and an outside building with a torn tarp is full of old furniture. The health officer performed an additional inspection from the roadway after speaking with the tenant on May 27th, 2020. Bags of trash were visible on the deck, grocery carts were seen tipped over in the front yard, and trash was seen spilling into the ditch along Hurricane Lane. The health officer observed there are no appropriate receptacles for the disposal of trash and recyclables on the property. Trash and recyclables dumped in the open constitute a health hazard for the residents of the property, the neighbors, and the local groundwater. It is unclear who is in charge of the property at this point in time. An estate has not been opened. However, information from the tenant indicated that Julie Coolidge is acting as landlord, collecting rent. The town has reached out to different trash removal companies to get estimates to remove the trash. 1-800-GOT-JUNK can remove the trash for $739 per truckload. The town officer anticipates that 2 to 3 truckloads of trash are present on the property. Waste removal companies Casella and Myers will supply dumpsters, but not the personnel to remove the trash. The town has found a brother of Donald L. Bevins, Larry C. Bevins Sr., who resides at 594 Zephyr Road in Williston and was named as the informant on the death certificate of Donald L. Bevins. He has been provided a copy of this order, and his assistance to address the matter has been requested. So in conclusion of law, in accordance with state and local law and based on the above findings of fact, I conclude that a public health hazard exists at 3173 St. George Road. Said hazards or risk is in violation of 18 VSA 2:9 and 10 and 127. Garbage, trash, and recyclables piled in the yard, RHHC 5.5.1 to 5.53.1. No smoke alarm on each level and near each bedroom, NPA 101 to 31.3.4.5, and NFPA 101 to 24.3.4. Home not free of pests, RHHC 6.1, 6.2, and 6.3. Screens not present on all windows, RHHC 8.1.1. I conclude that the house at 3173 St. George Road is uninhabitable due to the conditions described in the findings of fact. There has been a long history of persistent violations and noncompliance at the residence. The situation has recently gotten much worse with no one clearly in charge of the property. Therefore, the following health orders, what I'm requesting, granted in 18 VSA 127. Number 1, ordered, remove all trash and recyclables from the property within 72 hours. If this deadline is not met, the town will seek a court order to have the trash and recyclables removed and seek reimbursement. The cost is estimated at $1,500 to $2,300. Number 2, ordered that appropriate containers for trash and recycling will be provided and maintained within 24 hours. Number 3, ordered to install smoke and carbon monoxide detectors on each level and near each bedroom of the house within 48 hours. Number 4, professionally exterminate the entire house within 30 days after such work is allowed under the COVID-19 state of emergency. Alert the town health officer as to when the work is scheduled and the contractor that will be used before the extermination takes place. Number 5, ordered that all operable windows in the house shall be fitted with screens within 14 days. And number 6, ordered that a court order will be sought to require all inhabitants to leave 3173 St. George Road. And in conclusion, the town has been in contact with nonprofit agencies and would be prepared to assist the tenants in finding new housing, specifically the Champlain Valley Organization on Economic Opportunity and the Howard Outreach Social Workers.
Thank you, Cindy. Are there any questions from the board for Cindy?
Hey, Cindy, I hope you
Hi.
don't mind a couple questions. Jeff Ferris here, by the way. I guess one of my first questions is, and I want to make sure maybe I heard it correctly, this order was not served to the tenants who are staying at the property, only to Julie Coolidge?
I believe it was served to the tenants who were present when the police arrived, but I'm requesting that the tenants not be included in the health order because it's really Julie's or the estate's responsibility.
Yep, okay, good. And Julie is named because she is seen as, you mentioned she's acting as the landlord and collecting rent.
Yes.
So she, I guess, and don't read anything into this. It's just that when I heard you say under conclusion of law, no one clearly in charge of the property, couldn't somebody argue that Julie is in charge of the property because she's acting as a landlord and collecting rent?
I think from the information I'm getting from one of the tenants currently there, the only function Julie is providing at this moment is collecting rent.
Okay. So the concept of nobody in charge of the property is...
There's no
is
maintenance,
accurate.
nobody providing
Yeah.
trash removal, that type of thing.
Yep. So let me, here's a little nitpicking thing, but I still picked up on it. Under number 17, and it talks about outside building with a torn tarp is full of old furniture. And I guess I'm asking, what is the relevance of that? If I could justify why I'm asking that is a lot of properties in town, not a lot, but there might be other properties in town that would have an outbuilding with that sort of a description. It doesn't matter in those cases. Why does it matter here?
Well, because the rental housing inspection report does require, in the law, it does matter. 5.5.2.1 says the owner of any dwelling or rooming house shall assure that arrangements are made for the removal of trash, recyclables, and food scraps. I think if perhaps it was in an enclosed area so that it would not be collecting water, that would be part of it. But because all the furniture and the rubbish in that torn out tarped is collecting water, it provides the haven for mosquitoes.
Okay. I understand. Good. Thank you. Very helpful. Now, the last piece, and this is probably my major question, is the previous order did not require that the tenants and Julie, Miss Coolidge, leave the property. But this is part of this order. Is that correct?
Well, the order requests a court decision on that.
Okay.
That the court order will be sought. So it's not technically part of the health order, but it's the request for the court to decide if this is a livable situation or not.
Okay. So by us, if we agree to that as part of this order, we, the select board, we're in a sense concurring by asking the court that they make that finding.
Or that they look and assess that from
Okay.
a court perspective.
And what what caused you to, I don't want to, in the previous order that wasn't part of the order, the one from October 12th, maybe 2019, that was a part. Now it is. And what pushed you to feel that that was appropriate for this order?
I think what has caused that is, first of all, a very upset phone call from the neighbor, Mr. Davis, and the accumulation of the trash outside. Previously, there was trash with the campers, but when they moved, that was partially cleaned up. Now trash is accumulating outside again because there is no dumpster and there's no service to come pick it up.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions?
I have, looking over the proposed order, I'm noticing it doesn't actually say who's being ordered to do something. Mr. Bevins is dead. Generally, a court order directs some specific person to do something, and this is, I understand why, I'm not criticizing, but this is almost in the third person. Ordered, remove all trash and recyclables. Who? My concern is that if there was a tricky lawyer out there, they might say, look, this isn't enforceable because it doesn't identify who is actually specifically being commanded to do something by the court. So my thought is that it may make sense to say, to have a preamble in the actual order part that we're requesting from the court that would say something like, or a request of the court that the estate of Donald L. Bevins and or those exercising dominion and control over the property of 3173 St. George Road. And my thought,
Well done, Counselor.
just trying to look out for the tricky lawyer.
I was doing the same thing with you.
My concern though is that there's probably not an estate that's been opened, given the level of attention to detail that the property has been evidencing. And that makes me wonder if it may actually be that the town has to ask that an estate be opened. I'm not sure if that can be done, but I think it can. I think creditors can request that an estate be opened.
Potentially, but I'm wondering, do we have any other enforcement mechanism? Because you now, I understand why we're at where we're at. And to answer Jeff's thing, I mean, this has gone way too far. So the public health risk is getting big. Do we have a mechanism that allows us to come in and do that at some point when it's clear that nobody wants to open this estate? And I can see why they don't want to open the estate. I don't think you're going to get anybody to move forward with that. So you could have property that just sits there abandoned. We've got another one in town that I have a feeling is going to be exactly the same case.
I suspect that an estate can be forced upon the heirs of people. I think I'm almost positive that it can be opened by creditors if people don't open an estate because they think that somehow they're going to dodge creditors or something. Creditors can come in, just as, for that matter, creditors can actually come in and ask a bankruptcy court to declare you bankrupt. It's very rare that happens, but it is available.
Okay.
So I'm thinking if we try it that way and kick this over to the town attorney. But that's the only question or recommendation I would make.
It's a very difficult situation for exactly that reason, because there's nobody currently in charge except for collecting the rent.
Any further questions for Cindy? If not, then we can open it up for the rebuttal from Julie Coolidge, who I understand wants to issue or bring into evidence something tonight.
Yep. Julie, I see you on the line. I'm going to unmute you momentarily. Cindy, I'm going to leave you here as a panelist. I'm just going to mute you for right now. And Cindy will be here to answer any questions.
Okay.
Hi, Julie, are you there?
Hello? Yes, I'm here. How are you tonight?
Good. I'm going to turn over to the select board.
Okay.
Well, Julie, can you hear us?
Yep, I can hear you. How are you?
Good. So before you give us a rebuttal, I need to swear you in. And so I'll read you
Okay.
the oath. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And the floor is yours.
Alrighty. So first of all, thanks for meeting and talking with me this evening and giving me a chance to talk to you guys. I just want to let you guys know that there was a lot going on as far as my dad, obviously, back and forth to the hospital and 2 nursing homes and this and that. And unfortunately, I was the only kid that was doing anything to help him with the house, his health, his appointment, just the bills, you know, and just everything. Excuse me. And unfortunately, because of that, I couldn't get to everything else that I had to do every day, which means the house and the things that were asked of me. At this moment right now, we've got the garage in the backyard pretty much cleaned out. I've got all the trash on the property cleaned up. We are getting ready to start working in the house here to clean that up. We do have the smoke detectors with the carbon monoxide. We do have fire extinguishers. I'm going to work on the screens. And the garbage, I've got someone that's going to be helping me with that as well. And then my next step will be the bed bugs. It's a lot of it just has to do with, I was taking care of my dad 24 hours a day, 7 days a week by myself. And because of my brother, Danny, coming here with people he shouldn't have been coming here with, we couldn't get nurses in here. So it all lied on me. So unfortunately, because of that, I wasn't able to take care of a lot of these situations that needed to be done because my main focus was my dad. The house is not going to be abandoned. It's not abandoned. I am in charge. I needed a little time to mourn after his death, but I'm back now and I'm trying to take care of everything that needs to be taken care of. And my attorney, Ken Kadulig, can verify that.
Are there any questions from the board?
I think they pretty much answered everything I probably would have asked. At this moment, no, I don't have any questions. I just wanted to let you guys know that I am back here. We are getting everything taken care of, cleaned up. We do actually have garbage bins in the back. We've got like 10 of them that we can use for our garbage. They're full. That's the thing. So I'm getting somebody in here to take care of that, like I said.
Ms. Coolidge, do you?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if someone else was speaking. Do you have a sense of timing for when you think you're going to get caught up with some of this? It sounds like you've made a lot of progress.
Yeah, and it's been 2 days and I've gotten all that done. I'm hoping maybe within a month and a half, considering the money situation and all that. And there's things I had to do for myself as well to prepare myself for, like not being able to have a place to live now that my father's dead and I know the house is going to probably be gone. And, there was just a lot of things I had to take care of on my own. That's why I didn't step right up after he passed. Plus the mourning situation was hard. Then my brother got into a major car accident after that. So it's just been one thing after another. But I am definitely taking care of things. And my brother's here too, if you'd like to speak with him. My brother, Ronnie. He's the one that's been helping me for the past couple days.
If he'd like to testify, I'd be happy to swear him in. Is he going to testify? I don't hear anything from him. Does the board have any further questions for Ms. Coolidge?
Ms. Coolidge, this is Ted Kenny. The question I have is an estate being opened for your father's property?
What do you mean by that?
Like in probate court?
I don't believe.
Yes.
Okay, my brother said yes.
Tell him I'm dealing with our attorney, longtime
He's
attorney.
dealing with, here, I'm going to let him speak for a second. Is that okay?
Before you speak, I just need to have you be sworn in.
Okay, before he speaks.
Yes.
All right, here he is. Just one second.
Hello?
Yes. Before you give testimony, I need to have you be sworn in. So
Absolutely, sir.
I'll read you the oath. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
So would you give us your name and then go ahead and give us your statement?
My name's Ronnie Bevins. I am Donald Bevins' stepson. So his longtime attorney, Kenneth Kadulig, he's out of South Burlington area. I'm not quite sure, but I spoke with him a few days after our dad passed, and he had let me know that he was willing to handle the estate, that whatever needed to be done with any creditors, because there's a lot of creditors. I know there's people that have some liens on the house, and they're going to want their money, and I get that. So as far as avoiding any payments to anybody, that's not going to happen. The only thing that we're going to do here is, get like personal property of our dad's out and whatever we might have owned here or there, and that's it. And then eventually we plan on leaving. We know that we're going to have to leave, and the house is going to get sold off to, well, the bank owns it, but I just don't know how much equity he had in the house. So, but as far as probate court goes and stuff, Kenneth Kadulig is going to be handling that for us.
Thank you.
Good, thanks. Any questions from the board? Seeing none. If there's no more testimony to be given, I presume there's nobody else on the line that wishes to give any testimony.
No, Terry.
All right. Then at this point, we would need a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Motion made, and take the second from Joy. All those in favor of closing the hearing, say, raise your hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So the hearing is closed, and we have the option of an open deliberation or a deliberative session, which if we do that, we would postpone this until the end of the meeting. But is there anyone who has an objection to doing an open session? Seeing no objections, then we'll do an open deliberation on whether or not to issue a health order or modify one or vacate the one that's being proposed. So comments. So do you have anything to add at this point?
Not sure she heard you.
I did. I'm not sure where to go from here. I guess my immediate thought is, would the health order hurt if she's working on compliance anyway? Would that in any way negate things if we have a health order while she's working on compliance? I feel for her. I know she's been in an incredibly difficult situation, but on the other hand, this has been going on for years.
I was going to say, I'd love to see the dates extended on this to something a little bit reasonable, because they're 24 hours, 72 hours, whatever, knowing that she's working on it.
Right.
I'm in favor with you of, yes, I'd like to see an order in place. I just would like to see time periods. A month and a half to me is too long, but I'll let others weigh in on that.
I think from a safety standpoint, the thing that I would push for to be done immediately is the carbon monoxide and smoke detectors. And, you know, they've lived with bed bugs for years. I don't know I mean, it's certainly not a good situation, but I don't think it's immediately life-threatening either. But I would agree with you, Joy.
Is there a way for you to confirm that that is done?
Yes,
Or-
that it gets done.
Yes.
Yes, I would make a home visit,
Okay.
just make sure.
But my comment's going to be to us as a board of guys, what do you think is a reasonable time period? I'm thinking a month and a half is too long. You know, so are we looking at 20 days? Are we looking at?
I think 14 days. I think the proposed order, paragraphs 2 and 3, I would keep as is, because appropriate containers for trash and recycling within 24 hours was pretty doable. Smoke and carbon monoxide detectors on each level within 48 hours, again, is pretty doable. If they've already been done, I think that may have been said, or if they're in the process, well, then great, then the order is already complied with. The rest of it, though, I'm thinking, 2 weeks would be, given the time that's already passed, 14 days to me would be a pretty decent amount of time. I would also, at the end of this, though, as a separate but related issue, I would say that we should probably, as a matter of consensus, ask the town manager to consult with the town attorney to see about getting an estate established if one has not been within a week or two, because this order is going to have to be served and on somebody who actually enforces it. And so
That part I can tell you because I practice in that court. Everything has been slowed down. Depending who's opening it and how much of a pet they are of the court, you may get in there a little sooner than later. I'm not sure how much Ken does there. I mean, I'm there a lot. I don't see Ken very often, so I don't know what to say. But that if you want to do this, that one of the things would probably be is get somebody in there who can get Judge Glennon's attention pretty quickly. And I'm sure if it's couched in the way that it's an emergency estate, that will help.
Yeah.
That would not be part of the health order, however.
Correct.
No, it's just kind of talking this through because I hate to see an order go through that doesn't have the teeth to enforce it.
Yep.
And would the item number 6 stay?
I had that question as well.
Did they not leave? Or no, it's just the son and the daughter that are there.
There's 4 tenants there, I believe. But it also, I wondered, how does this interface with the zoning violation? He's still on, that's still in process too, the zoning violation to get all the tenants out as well. So I don't know how those two things fit together.
I would be in favor of it staying.
Yes, so would I.
If that is the case, why do the other, the trash removal I get, but the smoke and carbon monoxide detectors and exterminating the house, who is that for?
You're right.
Because nobody's there.
From a
We
health,
told
and
them,
I've told them that all along. From a health officer perspective, none of those things come into account if there are no tenants.
But there are tenants now, right?
But there are tenants, and they have been
Yep.
continually told to leave for 2 years and have not gone anywhere. So
and this is just an observation. It is not meant to sway anything one way or the other. It's not going to sway me. Let me put it that way. But just one point is if there are no tenants, there's obviously no income from the tenants, which could just exacerbate the ability for whoever to comply.
right.
Yeah, that's true. But I think the mechanism of this is that the town will seek an order to have the trash and recyclables removed and then seek reimbursement, meaning that the town will do work. If we have to join a line of creditors that are already on the house, well, so be it. It's a public safety issue.
Depending what's out there, throw a mechanics lien on there immediately. Because if it's going to sell, that'll have precedence.
Whatever that means.
It's the lawyers just trying to make sure the town gets paid.
Okay.
I will offer, I know you closed the hearing. We do have Sarah Reeves, who is the executive director of the Solid Waste District, on the line, who is next on the agenda. If she's indicated she raised her hand, she may be able to provide some information on this subject should the board want to reopen to have Sarah provide information here.
About the solid waste issues, I assume, with the property?
That's what I'm thinking. She's indicated she may have a comment she could make in this matter.
Sure.
If it's agreeable for the board, we will reopen the hearing for testimony from Sarah.
Okay. I have to tell her she can't talk about the budget.
Not yet. Sarah, are you there?
She should be here momentarily.
Okay. I can see her name. But...
Hi, Sarah, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great.
So I need to have you sworn in before you testify.
Yes.
And I'll say, do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. If you just give us your name, even though we know who you are.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Reeves. I'm the executive director for the Chittenden Solid Waste District. And I wanted to remind the select board that the town does have access to the community cleanup fund. And each year the member municipalities have money put into that fund. And one of the original purposes of the fund was to clean up different properties, such as either abandoned properties or properties that have issues such as what you have just discussed at the hearing. And as of today, the town of Williston has $2,565 in the fund. As of July 1, you will have another $1,000 in that fund. So you will have $3,565 available to use for cleanup should you need it or want it.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions for Sarah?
No. I mean, it's up to the town's discretion, basically, how to use it, whether we use town labor. I'm not suggesting that, but that would be one option, or hire, more likely, a firm that does this type of work.
That's right.
Yep.
And the way you would access those funds would be to go through your commissioner. I know that Jeremy is stepping off the board. However, you could go through Kaylin. Kaylin McCamp is obviously still going to be your alternate. And it's a very simple process. And if that's an option you would like to use, you can feel free to reach out to me or to Michelle Morris, and we can walk you through that process. But it's pretty simple.
Sarah, thank you so much for chiming in with this really valuable information.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any further questions for Sarah? If not, since we reopened the hearing, I think we probably need a motion to close it again.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor of closing the hearing, raise your hand. 4 yeses. So the question is to the board, are we willing to go ahead with serving the health order, modified health order?
Given our discussion, I am.
And I guess what I'm going to ask is the order as it's was presented to us, or the order as we have started to discuss possibly modifying it?
It will be a modified health order.
Okay.
What exactly are the modifications though? Because it sounded like as we started talking our way through them, they all could stand.
We still need to do it to eliminate the tenants from people being served. Looking at the order as this, it talks about the hearing that we're having tonight. We need to eliminate Gordon St. Solaire's name from that. And I'm not sure that we have anything else to do.
Well, I think we talk about making an amendment to the wording so that it would be directed to the estate of Donald L. Bevins.
That part. Thank you.
And or those exercising control over the property of 3173 St. George Road, Williston. And then also I thought we were going to amend the first paragraph so that it is remove all trash and recyclables from the property within 14 days, not 72 hours.
And so I'll ask the question if whoever the estate is able to comply with order number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 within the timelines, either that are already there or that we have modified them timeline wise, do we need to move ahead with 6?
I think we had a couple of people said that we should continue to do that.
I'm a little hesitant because the first 5 are all there about making the property inhabitable or livable for tenants, I guess, to meet a certain standards that in order to have tenants, you have to achieve. So if they've achieved those, do we want to order the tenants to leave?
The reality of this though, Jeff, is they're going to have to leave just to achieve them anyway. I mean, you can't have people in there while it's being exterminated. And to the degree that this is, and for the length of time that it's gone on, I would warrant that I would wager that the property is not habitable at all. And by the time they finish this, it's probably going to be condemned anyway. It doesn't sound very good. Even if you clean all of this up, it would still be a huge health risk. And if you have the same people there and you get this cleaned up, what's to say we're not going to start all over again? It's been going on for years. That would be my concern.
Yeah. And I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. So if the property can never be inhabitable, why don't we skip 1 through 5 and just make 6 as soon as possible?
Because you've got neighbors that are being affected by the way that this property is being kept. You're going to end up with a rodent problem and other things that are going to start going to the properties around it. That's not right.
Yep, fair
and
enough.
Just the sheer amount of garbage that's there, I'm just thinking that's just not a good environment for anyone.
No, it makes sense. I get your point. So 1 and 2, we want to keep up. Would we still want to include 3, 4, and 5? Because
even if they don't have tenants, that daughter and son are probably staying in that property. There may not be tenants, but they're inhabitants. They're not paying rent, but they're maintaining the property. You still want to make sure that it's safe, or God forbid a fire does go off, you'd like the neighbor to hear it before it starts spreading across the lawn into their property.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just pointing out that a house, a purely residential house, it may not be a good idea, but I'm sure there are plenty that don't have working fire alarms and carbon monoxide alarms. Yep, I'm sorry. Please. Yes, Cindy, I meant, yes, sorry.
Sorry. My understanding, and Terry can certainly correct me, is from a health officer standpoint, I have no jurisdiction if there are no tenants for the inside of the house. You're absolutely right. For the outside, it's affecting the neighbors. But for the inside, I don't believe I have any jurisdiction if there are no tenants.
It goes to private residence at that point. Yes.
And I'm not trying to say I like this, but
right.
There are probably with homes that are very similar to this that we are not addressing at all.
Can I say something?
Sure, please.
I think the definition of tenant here, it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody who's actually paying. So given that the stepson and daughter may be living there, I think they would actually be tenants. They may be tenants at will. They may be paying no rent, but they are tenants under the eyes of the law. So I'm not too worried about that. The other thing is that you'll notice, and I like the wording of paragraph 6 because it doesn't say all inhabitants are required to leave, period, because the town doesn't have the authority to do that. What it says is a court order will be sought to require all inhabitants to leave. And we could modify that to, if the previous 5 paragraphs are not complied with forthwith, or as per the schedule laid out in each, a court order will be sought.
I feel much more comfortable with that language in number 6.
Any objections to?
Nope, no objection.
If not, then
let's make sure Cindy feels good about that.
Right, I like that too. I just want to make sure I have this correct. So number 1, remove all trash and recyclables within 14 days, right? Is that right?
Correct.
And then number 2, provided and maintained, is that still within 24 hours? Is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, smoke detectors within 48 hours.
Correct.
And number 4, within 30 days, or when COVID-19 makes it possible.
Correct.
And then the windows, number 5, the screens within 14 days?
Correct.
Yes? Okay, thank you. No, I think that makes a lot of sense.
And then paragraph 6 would be modified to read at the beginning, if the conditions of the preceding 5 paragraphs are not complied with within the applicable deadlines, comma, and the rest of it stays, a court order will be sought. And I'd recommend that as part of our approval that we start off where it says at the beginning, therefore by the authority granted, it is hereby ordered. I would say something like that the estate of Donald L. Bevan and are those exercising control over the property of 3173 St. George Road, are hereby subject to the following, ordered.
Right at the beginning of the order itself?
Yeah.
Okay. The estate of Donald L. Bevins and those exercising control over the estate are hereby ordered.
Say and or those exercising control over the property.
Okay, and or. Okay, thank you.
So according to the procedures that I have, we've already deliberated in open session. We're ordering that the board will order that the emergency health order the health order be served. And if we reach consensus on this, then the order will be rewritten and signed by the chair. So if we have consensus to do this, those who are in favor of serving the order, raise your hand as modified. So we have 4 yeses.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would also ask that we make an official notation in the minutes that we adopt the findings of fact as presented in the
yes,
in Cindy's presentation.
Yes.
Good point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Yes. So I think we've conducted our business as far as the health order goes. And thank you, Cindy.
You're well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice job, Cindy.
Thank you.
So we'll move on then to the Chittenden Solid Waste District fiscal year 21 budget. Sarah Reeves is here tonight to deliver the good news or bad news or so Sarah, welcome and do your presentation, please.
Thank you very much. And thank you for your time. I appreciate the town getting us on as quickly as possible. Everything has been a bit delayed this year, as we all know. So thank you for working with us and getting us on quickly. So this year, the budget pack that I have sent to the town, particularly the first few meetings, does look a little different than what you may have been used to. So please do ask questions regarding anything that you have questions about or that you may feel has been missing. But this year's budget is basically round two. So we went through 2 to 3 iterations of that. One was our January, February version, and then the more recent version. So the one that you have in front of you today is the packet that you have is the packet, essentially the packet that went to our Board of Commissioners. And it is a bit shrunk down from some of the additional detail, but the programs are going to be on the website very shortly. And so what you have is kind of that high level top of the line, but we wanted you to have the background to the decision making because it is a different year. The big caveat is, I'm sure you've been hearing from others, is that this is what we have in front of you is the best understanding that we have right now as far as to where the numbers are now. We are going to be constantly having to review, revise potentially, but certainly monitoring like we've never monitored before the budget, particularly when it comes to the revenues. So I think that, just as a reminder, our revenues are a little bit different than a standard municipality, and we are a chartered municipality. Williston is one of our 18 members. And the difference is we don't receive any tax dollars. So our cities and towns do not pay us anything for the services. We don't send you a bill. We exist because years ago, you all decided that you wanted to create this district so that the entity would be responsible for executing the mandates of the state regarding solid waste. So that's what we do. So our main sources of revenue are 3. The first one that we talk about is the solid waste management fee, and that is essentially, we call it a tax on trash, but it's essentially a fee that is charged to the haulers. It's $27 per ton, and that fee is charged to the haulers for each ton of trash that is destined for disposal, essentially going up to Coventry or other areas for disposal. That fee has not changed in, I want to say we're the 5th, 6th, at least 6th year of the $27. So in this budget going forward, we're also keeping that $27 in place. We do not see a need to increase that solid waste management fee. The other, one of our other sources of revenue are tipping or user fees, and those are the fees that we charge at the point of disposal for the operations that the district runs. So our drop-off centers, the materials recovery facility, the Green Mountain Compost or Organic Diversion Facility, the Environmental Depot. And so those fees, by and large, are also remaining the same with a little bit of tweaking this year, and we'll get into what that means as well. And then material sales is the revenue that we generate from things like the sale of recyclables that have been sorted at the materials recovery facility, sale of local color paint, compost products, topsoil, etc. And then or products that we purchase and then resell, such as compost bins to the public. And those are our 3 main sources of revenue. In what used to be called normal years, they were roughly thirds. This year, and this past year, so the current fiscal 20 and looking forward into 21, the solid waste management fee is still running about 27-28%. The tipping and user fees are just over 50% of our revenue base. So that's really where we're focusing. It's probably not a surprise that our material sales have been less than a third. We've talked a lot about the markets for recycling. Interestingly enough, some of that is stabilizing. It truly is a topsy-turvy world. So in the packet that I sent to you, I broke out the budget into several different snapshots: a revenue snapshot, an expenses snapshot, cuts that we made as well to kind of the post-February budget, and then talking about the bottom line. So in that revenue snapshot, we are looking at a slight decrease in the fiscal 21 budget to the fiscal 20 budget of about 3.5%. And we focused a lot of our analysis on the assumptions going into calculating that solid waste management fee. And we are anticipating a reduction in those fees. And that is mainly due to anticipated reductions in commercially generated solid waste. So through this current fiscal year, through the third quarter, which ended for us as it did for you in March, we were spot on budget. We were, the tons were exactly as we had anticipated. The sales for compost were doing very well, had already started to grow, and were doing very, very well. And so April, then obviously everything stopped, and the bottom fell out a bit. So we're considering April to be our worst case scenario. And so growing from there is where we started making our assumptions to how we develop this budget. So we looked at statewide projections. We looked at Chittenden County specific projections. We talked to folks in the hospitality industry. We talked to haulers. We talked to people at UVM, at the hospital, and other commercial entities. And we based our assumptions there. We early on made an assumption that there would be 0 events, and that is proving to be the case. So we recognized for probably the rest of the year, there'll be no events. So no waste generated there. We took UVM and Champlain as they might at their word that they were still intending to bring back students. However, we're not counting on that. Now that can be balanced off by other schools also doing remote learning. So that's part of what I mean by we're going to have to be taking a look as we go at the tonnage, because yes, we will be receiving material from UVM. However, students who may not be going out of state or to other colleges within the region will probably be staying home and still generating trash. So this is going to be just a constant monitoring of where we are over the next 3, 6, 12 months. But that is part of our projection. We had also assumed that 40% of Chittenden County restaurants, for example, would not open to full capacity, and we are seeing that as well. And then we're anticipating about 15% just may not reopen at all. So factoring all of that in, we have reduced the expected revenue from the solid waste management fee down about 25 to 28%. Now that reduction represents about 8% of the overall revenue. So it seems like it's a big chunk coming out, but when you look at it in the whole, it's still a large number, but not as large as 25 or 26%. So looking again at our tip fees, our tipping fees, user fees are projecting to be higher this year because in March we did raise the tip fee at the materials recovery facility at $80 a ton, and that is still below market range. We are still the best deal in town, but that number coupled with an increase in the average sales that we're getting for recyclables means that we are anticipating that we'll be able to maintain that tipping fee for this year. And that's what we've budgeted. We've budgeted that $80 for the entire year. So if that commodity revenue stays around, doesn't go below $30 a ton, then that $80 a ton will mean that we'll be able to cover our costs, pay the bills for the MRF, and then to put some small amount away for capital improvements there. Anything over that $30 average commodity revenue from the MRF means that we can continue to put a little bit more away in capital, because we do know that we have things that we need to take care of there, and that's our responsibility at the MRF. We're also holding the tip fees at the compost facility at Green Mountain Compost. We were looking at raising it this year, but decided this is not the year to do that. So we are holding those tip fees at $60 a ton. The switch to wholesale and bulk sales has dramatically increased our efficiency, and we, like probably every other compost producer in the country, is selling through product like crazy. So we have recognized outstanding sales this year, and we'll be carrying that over hopefully into the coming months. And that is one of the projects that we are continuing to go forward on, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about the capital in the projects. So those fees are staying the same. So the one fee that has already been tweaked a little bit, and we're going to continue it for a short time into the new fiscal year, are the user fees at the drop-off centers. So when we closed the system for that deep clean, and then recognizing the effects of COVID and staffing concerns and needing to do the physical distancing, we went to a flat fee system. So if any of you have used the Williston Drop-Off Center since we reopened, then you will be familiar with the flat fees. So it's $10 per trip for between 1 to 4 bags or barrels, up to 45 gallons each of trash, and then $20 for 5 to 8 bags or barrels. We have since added a few more materials on at the Williston Drop-Off Center. We have since opened the Essex Drop-Off Center. Friday, we'll be opening the Milton Drop-Off Center. So, and still maintaining that flat fee system. So we're anticipating maintaining that flat fee system as a temporary fee structure, most likely into the first quarter of the fiscal year. And at that point, we'll have a better sense of what the other alternatives for disposal are, what our customers' patterns are, how our staffing is regarding continued monitoring for COVID and maintaining that physical distancing, metering people through. But then we'll be able to take a look at, can we go back to a more of a standard normal, I hate to use the word normal, fee structure that our customers are used to. We've had some very good feedback, however, on the flat fee, because people quickly realized that they could save money if they consolidated their trips. So we're going to factor all of that in as we go forward into this next first quarter. So the first quarter is really going to tell us a lot more as well. So we'll take the information we've learned from this current quarter, wrap it into next. But the goal is to get away from this flat fee system potentially, and then go back to, again, a per item fee. We are also on the fast track to implementing credit card services at the drop-off centers, beginning with Williston. And when we eventually get to reopening Heinsberg, they'll be there as well. But that, we realize, has been critical. One of the reasons for going to the flat fee was to reduce the use of coinage and having to make change, physically having to handle change. So additionally, tweaks to the pricing system at the drop-off centers, maybe to get away from quarters, dimes, nickels, et cetera, and try to go to whole numbers, recognizing we'll still take quarters, but to be able to get to kind of whole dollar amounts. So that's one of the things that we're looking at as well. How can we do that to maintain an affordable system at the drop-off centers? So moving down to the expenses, we are looking at expenses at just under 12 million. So our revenues are just over 12 million, and the expenses just under 12 million at 11 million 8. And the biggest change there, the biggest thing that is affecting those expenses, is the very large anticipated expense for moving our materials. Materials movement is anything that we have to pay someone else to take somewhere, to haul away for us, whether it's to transfer station, to the landfill, or to a vendor. And the biggest piece that we're looking at there is $300,000 in our budget to move glass and or processed glass aggregate to market. We right now, well, we're not right now. But right now, we're moving our process glass aggregate back to the quarry in the warmer weather. We're able to do that in the wintertime. We're not able to send it to the quarry as reliably, so we have been having to send the material out of the MRF to a recycler in Massachusetts, and that has thrown the costs through the roof. So again, this is a very conservative budget, making sure that we are over budgeting that line item and then doing everything we can to not have to use of that amount of money. So that is a huge chunk of our budget that we have not had to do before. So you can probably understand that we are actively looking for ways to reduce that line item, but that's the biggest increase. And some of the others are more movements between different programs. For example, the IT budget grew dramatically, but it's because we moved some of those systems out of other budgets to consolidate the functions there. And then we did make cuts. So I think one of the benefits of a slowdown was that it gave us time for the budget that we presented to our finance committee in February, go back and take another look and then make cuts there. So we did make cuts, as you can see, to wages and benefits, outreach and communications. There were certain things we cut across the board. Anything that was discretionary, travel, training, subscriptions, then we cut advertising, we cut some grants, we eliminated and curtailed other transportation, mileage, hauler container grants were eliminated. We reduced our printing costs by 1/3. And one of the things that we did not touch is that community cleanup fund. And I've been pointing that out to our communities to make sure that even though, when they hear the grants are cut, that's a different kind of a grant. It's not really a grant. So that is safe, secure, intact, and available for use. But some of these other things were cuts that we deemed that we needed to make. We also, in our capital budget, made cuts there and deferred some projects and some purchases. And then we also divided our capital budget into a first priority and a second priority. So those projects were things that we can look at later in the year, some of those second priority projects. The big priority that we do want to move ahead on, though, is the improvements to the compost facility. And part of that is, again, to continue with this ongoing efficiency and to make sure that we can still manage the material in an environmentally and economically sound way. We also have a grant from the Agency of Natural Resources to help offset some of those costs. So we want to continue to move forward to support the July 1 ban, which is, as of today, is still in the law. So the legislature has not delayed that food scrap ban from landfill disposal. So knowing that we want to be able to, again, continue with those plans and make those site improvements. So that is a very large project, and that is our top priority project for this coming year. So that one is going to continue. And our bottom line is, you can see as I communicated to our board, as a municipality, we always need to get to zero. So we do have an anticipated shortfall in our budget this year of just over $80,000, or 0.7% of our budget. And my recommendation to the board was that we close that shortfall by using money from the Solid Waste Management Fee Rate Stabilization Fund. Now, over the years, we've had a drop-off center rate stabilization fund. We have had this Solid Waste Management Fee Rate Stabilization Fund, and it is designed to be able to put revenue there that was in excess of the budget, so that in times such as this, instead of having to raise that solid waste management fee to cover operations, we would have that excess money there, kind of a rainy day fund, to be able to cover any shortfalls. And it's a very small shortfall, and it's so small that I do think that if the revenues are coming in as anticipated, we should be able to find additional places to save. So we may not even need to transfer from that fund, but it is there and available for us to use. So that is the overview that I wanted to present for the budget. And again, I know it's a little bit of a different presentation this year, so I'm happy to answer questions that you may have and be able to hopefully provide other information. If there's something missing here and you need that, I can get that to you.
Good, thank you. So are there questions from the board regarding the budget?
I just have a curiosity question. Sorry if it's a waste, but the advertising budget being cut 50%, what do you advertise on?
Oh my goodness, you haven't seen our brilliant advertisements?
I have, but I can't place them. That's it.
Yes, no, we advertise in a wide variety of places, and one of the things that we do is the good thing is that we're able to get a lot of good data and information back as far as where people actually are seeing the ads. But depending on the needs in the campaign, we may advertise. We've advertised on television before. You may have seen some of our ads for recycling, for food scraps. Just in general, so we advertise there. We advertised in the past on at movies. So you may, if you go to the movies and you've seen the different ads pop up as you're waiting for the show to start, that's an area that was pretty easy to cut because we don't think movies are going to be available to folks for the next at least 6+ months. We do advertise in the paper. We advertise quite extensively through Front Porch Forum. We do radio advertisements, so we'll have radio campaigns. So the whole slew of Facebook ads, Instagram, Google ads. So we do a lot of social media advertising as well, targeted to either campaign or to zip code, depending on what we need to do. So there's a wide variety of areas where we advertise. And the more expensive ones, so why we're able to get to 50%, things like television, we're not doing television. We won't be doing the movie theaters. We may cut back on radio, most likely. So there's a host of things that help to amplify our messages, and particularly why we were looking to focus on amplifying some of the messages this year was in response to the July 1 landfill ban on food scraps. So we knew we were going to have to try to boost that message and to support the A&R's advertising as well. And that will probably not happen. So we'll go back to more of our tried and true, which is, again, we get lots of bang for our buck on radio and lots of bang for our buck on Front Porch Forum. So kind of going some of more of those newly traditional avenues, but that made it feasible for us to take a look at that and say, yeah, no, we're not going to put the money.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further questions?
Hey, Sarah, I'm sure you anticipated I'd have a couple. I'll try to be quick. And what I'm going to do is just go through a couple things I picked up as I went through this document, and then I'll get to sort of my bottom line. So the first one is I was pretty surprised. You explained it, but I was pretty surprised when I saw how the user fees make up almost half of the revenue coming in compared to the solid waste management fee, which is totally the opposite of what I expected.
Yeah.
But it's because of the abnormal time we're in. Oh, by the way, just to make sure, your fiscal year is the municipal fiscal year in Vermont, the July 1st through June 30th. Okay, just I wasn't sure. Just make sure there. I'm on page 2, and one thing, it took me a while to figure it out that I was looking at thousands of dollars in the table. And I was wondering, because I knew they couldn't be thousands of dollars. So they're expressed as thousands of dollars. So for those of us that maybe aren't so quick to catch on to such things, maybe a note in the future would help. I was wondering if I was looking at some sort of funky matrix that I just didn't understand, or some sort of units that I didn't understand. In the paragraph below, use the term county generation nadar. I don't know if I said that word correctly. I had no idea what that was. I looked it up.
No.
It means the low point, the bottom. Learn something new every day. When I'm comparing the MRF tip fees versus the organic diversion facilities tip fees, one of the things I think it's helpful to understand is how does that compare to what it costs somebody to throw out that same material? And so I'm wondering if you could provide any background on that.
Sure. So for the MRF, generally, who comes to the MRF are haulers. So the costs to the individual are baked into, if they have subscribed to hauling services, the cost to collect recycling is built in with the cost to collect trash. So that's built into their monthly fee. If a customer is bringing their recycling, and that's the same at our drop-off center. So if they're bringing recycling to our drop-off center, the cost for recycling is built into the cost of managing the trash. So generally when we increase the tip fee at the MRF, there's a very, it's a small trickle down and through because the hauler that applies that cost across all of their customers, just as we would apply that across all of our customers. And it's not a one-for-one, or it shouldn't be a one-for-one. So if we raise our tip fee by $10, as a subscriber, your fee should not go up by $10. If it is, you need to maybe ask a question.
switch haulers. Okay, so I was more getting at I'm looking at $80 a ton. If somebody was, let's say, to dispose of, and it's hard to come up with, I guess, a comparison, but I mean, what does Casellas Landfill in Coventry charge per ton? Just to help me understand how much of an incentive is it to take it to the MRF versus taking it to Coventry?
The last number I knew, and again, because they're a private entity, they can change their tip fees whenever they want, was an average of about $120 to $125 a ton at Coventry. Now, they have the ability to give different deals, different contract pricing, but a gate rate is what that is called, is in that $120, $125 a ton range.
Okay, good. So it still is an incentive to bring it to the drop-off center.
It certainly is, and it is still the law. Certain recyclables are banned from landfill disposal, so we all do need to keep them out of our trash.
Yes, right, and there is that. I guess the next part for me, I'm just going to make a comment. I found your budget, and this maybe is me. I'm not a finance person, but I have gotten pretty decent at understanding our municipal budget. I had a hard time understanding your budget. And I don't mean that as a negative. I mean it more as a comment along the lines of it's very different than our municipal budget. So it's not easy for somebody like me to kind of step in and really offer constructive comments because I really don't understand how it's put together. One of the things I did pick up on, though, is on your bottom line part, where you're basically making the point is we want to do something different with a solid waste management funds rate stabilization fund. I'm sorry, I got to get something out of my screen here. And it was hard for me to evaluate whether I could agree with that or not, that was the right thing to do. One of the things I wanted to do is say, okay, well, what is the fund? Kind of like what I might look at, what is our fund reserve? It would just give me an idea of how much of it is that $80,000 impact on that fund. And I didn't know where to go to try to answer that question.
Yeah.
And you explained it somewhat in your, you mentioned it's minuscule, but it still would have been helpful to me to see, what is the fund at? What level are you trying to keep it at? That type of thing.
Yes. So I had intended to include that page in your packet. So let me just make sure that I didn't. And if I didn't, I apologize. So let's see. So if you, hopefully this is what was in the packet. It may be page 7 on your packet, but if not, I can forward this over.
Yeah.
So it is the fiscal 21 anticipated collection of the solid waste management fee. So that is where we're looking at $2.5 million in solid waste management fees. There are solid waste management fee subsidies, basically what the programs that the fee supports are administrative programs, drop-off centers, environmental depot, the organics diversion facility, Fremont compost, bidding program, property management, and then that ode to LFPC reserve, that is the landfill post-closure reserve. And then so the total subsidy is, as you can see, needed for this year is 2.6 million. Out of the 2.5 that we anticipate. So the balance needed from the reserves, that's where we get that $80,500. So the unaudited balance in fiscal 19 in that reserve, you can see is $2.9 million. So we have nearly $3 million in the solid waste management fee reserve fund. So I'd have to do some quick math to see what 80,000 out of as a percentage of 3 million is, but
Small, yeah.
It's
Yeah. Okay, so I should have picked that up on page 7 where that would have shown. Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay.
But I included it.
Yeah. And then that's the second part, the next paragraph down where it talks about, it sounds like, again, it's something new being done this year because of the unique situation we're in, is it's described as contribution to overhead from the programs that do not use solid waste management fees monies.
Yes.
And again, I just don't have the ability to understand whether, I agree with that approach or not.
Right. Understood. And you are not alone. Our board has had, every year we have conversations about how to best acknowledge the overhead costs for certain programs and to charge appropriately. So you're picking up on a conversation that is an active one every year that I've been here, at least with our board. And there's probably 100 different ways to do it. I am hopeful that our new finance director will land us on a place that will get us there. So what we decided this year, and that was one of the reasons I included that balance sheet for the solid waste management fund reserve, was to be able to show the programs that use solid waste management fees. So what is not included on that list, the MRF, the biosolids program, and the closed landfill. So the closed landfill has its own reserve fund. So anything that is expensed to that program gets reimbursed directly from that fund. There's a very small amount of overhead, of administrative overhead to that fund. So we charge that program 1% overhead. It's minimal. The biosolids program is essentially a pass-through, and it's only a handful of our members actually participate in that program. And again, it's our process for that, our administrative needs are to manage the contract, a very small amount. So that program, it does take some administrative oversight. We charge 1% overhead of that budget there. The MRF is a different story. So the MRF does not use solid waste management fees as part of its operating, because we have the levers of the tip fee. So we can adjust the tip fee to cover those expenses. We do devote a significant amount of administrative oversight to the MRF that is not part of that budget. So our education tours, our the thought going into the advertising, the policy work that's done around recycling and the MRF, some of the billing, et cetera, all of that goes into what we call the overhead. So we determined that a reasonable amount will be 10%. So we charged the MERS budget 10% as their contribution to overhead. So that's where that came from. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah, I'm maybe I'm still in the low part of the curve of understanding your budget, but I'm understanding better. And now's probably a good time to talk about my overall view is the key things I look at when I'm looking at the budget. Well, the key things I look at are what are the impact to Williston residents and businesses? And that primarily is your tip fees and your solid waste management fees are the key things there. And then lastly, is there anything I see as dangerous or detrimental to the stability of what it is you're charging Williston residents and that you're charging that Williston resident businesses are seeing as a cost. And I'm not seeing that in the budget. So from that standpoint, I'm good with the budget. The one thing I am missing, and we've had in the past, and I would like to obtain before I say I agree or disagree with the budget, is our representatives' input on that. Usually they attend this meeting. I get to ask them, what do you think I need to know about the budget? What do you see as things that I should be aware of? And do you agree with the budget? And I have not had that ability to have that conversation with our representatives. I got this literally Sunday. It took me a while to get through it. So I would like to wait for that, to ask that question before I would vote yes or no.
Okay. I mean, Jeremy Halsey was in attendance at the meeting, and he may be here right now.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I just, by magic.
Technology.
Jeremy, are you there?
Looks like he's muted.
Can you folks hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. So, based on the work that Sarah has put into this alongside the finance committee, and then working along with the other commissioners from the other towns, I would say that this is a great budget, and they did a really good job anticipating what the changes are going to be like with COVID. I mean, based on the information that we have now, and also doing it in a way that doesn't negatively impact the staff for CSWD at the different drop-off centers and then at their main offices as well. I think it's a really good plan.
Okay. And Jeremy, Jeff Ferris here. Is there anything you would point out in the budget, either something I should be aware of or you'd like to highlight?
Put me on the spot here, Jeff.
Sorry, that wasn't my intent, but it is helpful to have our representative be able to advise us because of your involvement, much more hands-on involvement, obviously, and you have insight into things that we just don't. And representatives aren't always 100% in agreement with everybody else. I know that maybe too well. And it's just a good thing if there are things you think should be pointed out, point them out.
I mean, I think the biggest thing from where I stand is that this is a great plan for what we see and anticipate ahead, but there is also a lot of uncertainty ahead, and this budget will need to be revised likely and need to be adapted as we learn more about the impacts of COVID and the impacts on the economy, because that does play a huge role in the amount of waste that's generated in the community and just how the CSWD operates. So.
Okay, good. Thank you. So back to you, Sarah. So there is the potential that you'll be coming to us with a revised budget in fiscal year 21.
Well, there is that possibility. And if we do need to do a formal recast, then all of our communities will need to vote again.
Yep.
But my goal is to just continue to be making revisions that don't necessarily affect the bottom line, but certainly if there's a recast, that's back in your hands.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. That's it for me, Terry.
Thank you. Any further questions for Sarah before we ask for a motion for the budget? If not, is there a motion?
I move to approve the fiscal year 2021 Chittenden Solid Waste District budget as presented.
I'll second.
We have a second. Is there discussion on the motion?
Good job.
Good job indeed. I listened to.
Thank you, Sarah.
I listened to the state budget presentation for the first quarter, and it's a mess, just as this one is, but this one may be better than the state's.
Well,
So,
I've got my crystal ball is been fixed, so we're in a much better situation that way.
I do. So, all those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. So good. If you give us a brief presentation then on your annual update, you and Jeremy both.
Great. Thank you very much. So I did mention that one of our key projects this year is continuing with making the improvements at the compost facility. And again, that is, we're working hand in hand with A&R on that. And we are working through the stormwater design process, which is critical, as you can imagine. And so we're working with A&R on kind of a newer, innovative way to manage the stormwater on site, and they're very interested in our approach because they see it as a potential good application for VTrans and AOT to be using some compost products and helping with their projects. So it's a pretty interesting project at hand, but it's taking a little bit longer because it's innovative. So it is not proceeded as quickly as we wanted, but that's okay. Everything's been slowed down a little bit at this point, so that's fine. But that is going forward, and we would be, once we kind of get A&R on board, we come back to the town and we say, okay, here's what we presented to A&R, here's, work with your folks on that, and then proceed with making those, kind of doing the site work and getting the permits in place for that. And we're looking at that work happening over the course of the summer, maybe into the fall. But that is, again, it's a little bit of a different approach. So it's not a cookie cutter situation, as you can imagine. This also means that the MRF has taken a bit of a backseat. I know that I've been talking a lot about the MRF over the past couple of years, and the needs are still there. But now is not the time to be coming to our cities and towns with a potentially very large bond ask. So we recognize that, and we are instead looking at, how can we make the most of what we have, do repairs that need to be done there, but still move forward, because we are seeing some upticks in the MRF commodities markets. Cardboard and mixed paper, for example, which had been just in the doldrums for a year and a half, have started to pick up, in part due to people ordering a lot more, and toilet paper is made from mixed paper. So there's a high need there, and so getting that back out into the market has helped to boost that need, that demand. Also, a lot of domestic capacity for paper products is now coming online. So we're seeing an improvement in those markets, and we still have the need to want to be able to take advantage of that. And we do still feel very strongly about a new facility being the way to set Chittenden County up for the next 20 years. So we're going to, however, be making do with what we have, certainly for this year, as we continue to wait through what this new economy is going to look like. So it's proceeding, but more slowly. What has kind of leapfrogged over the MRF have been the drop-off centers, and taking a look at the system as a system. And, I've been saying to my team, essentially with the shutting down of the system, going to kind of basics, go to a flat fee. We have started a pilot program we never intended to start, but we're getting a lot of great information about how a smaller facility could look, how people are managing their special wastes and their bulky wastes and where that has to go, pricing, etc. So this is causing us and our board to want to take a much deeper dive over this coming year into what will, again, that next 20 years, the future of the drop-off center system look like. So that's going to be a real focus for us as we go forward. We're still not back in the administrative office. So as you can tell, I am working from home, as are most of our admin. We do, on a daily basis, we'll have maybe 1 or 2 people who will maybe float in and out of the admin office. But we are working from home through the state of emergency for sure. So through June 15th, and then we'll evaluate how many people should be in the office at any one time, still working with the physical distancing protocols, and probably staggering who's going to be there when. As far as our facilities, the compost facility never shut down. The MRF never shut down. The environmental depot has gone to an appointment system for residents, and that has been working beautifully. It's people have absolutely taken to it. I think a lot of places are looking for appointments now, and you have to call ahead. So our customers and our residents have really adapted very, very well to that, and that has helped our staff be able to adapt again to the distancing protocols and to give them a sense of feeling safe as well. So, learning an awful lot through this crisis and how to become more efficient and be able to continue to serve our residents and our businesses. So we're still doing outreach. We are doing a lot of Facebook Lives. We're doing videos, and we're doing virtual workshops. So still providing that service, just in a different way, kind of a 21st century way. So that is a snapshot of kind of where our priorities lie: compost, then drop-off center, and then MRF, and then just one step at a time.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Hopefully 2 quick ones. And I know I sound like a broken record on this, but with the compost facility, are you anticipating exceeding the limits in the host town agreement? You're going to live within them?
Yeah. In fact, we have rolled back our tonnage expectations for this year. Because of we're not anticipating, maybe I don't say this out loud. We're not certain that the colleges will bring all of their students back. So UVM was a very large contributor of.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And again, with restaurants operating at 25 to 50% of their capacity, we most likely won't see that there. So we've actually taken our food scrap tons back to fiscal 18 levels. So, and we feel very confident that actually that's a great level for us to be at, because we know that we are able to obviously manage that extremely well and also sell the resulting compost products from those 5,000 tons. So actually feeling pretty good about it.
Yeah. Well, that was actually the comment that really made me want to ask that question is you're mentioning you're having trouble actually keeping up with the demand for the compost product, which is a good problem to have, of course.
Right.
But it also, I could see where it would ask the question of, if we could take in more, we could sell more.
Yes, but that was our old approach, and that wasn't working. It really wasn't working. And we know what our sweet spot is. And the sweet spot for us is to match the constant, which is our leaf and yard, that those tons haven't changed in 20 years. Yeah, it's the same amount of leaf and yard that comes in. Match the food scraps to that constant. That's it. And that's our sweet spot. And we know that we can adequately manage those materials and that we can sell the resulting compost product. Okay. So our issue was, what do we do with the extra, the over the food? And we don't anticipate having that problem this year.
Okay. And then you mentioned the drop-off centers and the work you're doing there, and you're rethinking. It sounded like the drop-off centers. I just asked that as you're looking into the input into what makes the most sense, and I'm sure you know this, but please make sure you get input from the users, because
Yes.
they may be little bit different than from your side, what makes sense. And it's kind of how do you match the two? Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. And we learned that the hard way about 1.5 years ago when we didn't actively seek out some input, and we will not repeat that error again. So yeah, the reason we exist is for our customers and to be able to help them manage their waste in an economical way.
Yep.
So yes, absolutely.
All right, good. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thanks. Any other questions? And none. And we'll move on to the post-town agreement supplement number 7 and renewal. Rick, I think you're talking about this. You negotiated this?
Kind of. This is an agreement that's been in existence for, I don't know how many years. You get some idea of the fact that it's supplement number 7 and they've been each for 3 years. So it may give you some idea. The proposed the proposed supplement is actually just a renewal of what was number 6.
Mm-hmm.
And really there's no change at all. I think maybe a typo or something, but that's about it.
Any questions for Rick or Sarah on this? Go ahead.
Sure. One quick one is, and I forget where I should have circled it, I didn't, but the magic number, I'm under section 2.2A. And it uses what I guess would be the equivalent of a property value of $33,710. And my question just becomes is it appropriate to keep that the same?
Yeah, I think it is. We checked and with our assessor, and that number is still valid at this point.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
There are no more questions, and a motion would be in order.
I'd move to adopt supplement 7 of the host town agreement with the Chittenden Solid Waste District.
Second. I would second.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And we'll move on. And thank you very much, Sarah and Jeremy. We'll appreciate
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Moving on to Independence Day fireworks celebration. Todd, I think, was supposed to be joining us. Eric is out of the room. The master of ceremonies here.
Terry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I'm downstairs. I had a computer problem where it wouldn't charge anymore. So on the plan B downstairs on the phone. So.
Right. Well, I see Todd's name on the screen as well.
Yep, I just promoted Todd, and he should be unmuted here. If you like, I can give an update here. And,
yes, please.
Well, so after the last meeting, the board asked staff to look into what's allowed here moving forward from the state. So there's 3 options to proceed with fireworks, and we have a different option for staff for the board to consider tonight. Postpone the fireworks for later in the year or to cancel the fireworks at this point. So the state has advised the decision to have a fireworks display is up to municipalities, but proper social distancing protocols must be adhered to. I checked in with Ted Brady, Deputy Secretary of the Agency of Agriculture and Commerce, and I ran by just to see what we would need to do. I'll circle back on this in a minute. So what staff is going to propose here as an option to proceed, traditionally fireworks are set off near the Allenbrook School. There's an alternate location we've looked at. Jail Davis Realty has offered an open 15-acre field off of Harvest Lane as a site to stage the fireworks display. This is a field between Walmart and Gardner Supply. North Star Fireworks confirmed today that this site would work for them. Spectators for fireworks would be allowed to park in nearby parking lots of commercial businesses. According to Jail Davis, there's around 2,500 parking spaces in that business park. Jail Davis has also offered to make a donation should we proceed with the show to make it a bigger show. But one thing with this is the height of fireworks. Todd can speak more to this, but if we invest in the show a little more, the fireworks can go up higher, therefore they could be viewed from further away to help look at some of these pieces we're considering. And I've also checked in to see how far away could you see a display if it was let off from that point, and it could be seen from Maple Tree Place, and you could think of drawing a radius around there if we're thinking of additional parking lots. Should we proceed in this manner, we could touch base with other private businesses on. The idea would be to promote fireworks as a drive-in, set a certain time for people to come, view from these many parking lots that folks cannot view from home. So the current guidance is gatherings of more than 25 people for viewing would be prohibited unless there are separate and distinct groups throughout town. You could have folks walk from home or their cars or socially distanced in separate groups of up to 25. So when I touched base with Ted Brady, I ran this by him to get their take from the state agency. He said it was a viable alternative. There's no formal approval process on the state end, and just to follow the driving guidance on the ACCD webpage. So I pulled that before the evening before the meeting started. The guidance for drive-ins are vehicles must be spaced a minimum of 6 feet apart. Currently, it says no gatherings outside of vehicles are allowed, but in Ted's message to me, he alluded to that this would be updated shortly to allow people to exit their car and sit near their car. The other requirements are restrooms need to be cleaned if they're on site, and then if there's any transactions or concessions done remotely for curbside pickup. We also learned that the town of Killington is doing something similar. They're setting off fireworks from the ski resort and allowing drive-in viewing from the parking lots around the Grand Hotel there. And then another point to consider, many towns around us, including Burlington, Heinsberg, have canceled their fireworks. If Williston moves forward, it's likely folks from other towns would attend. It's kind of an overview of what the board has before to consider, and I've got Todd on the line here if Todd has anything to add in.
Just on the distancing, currently right now, our fireworks display at Allenbrook is the people are sitting right on top of it. So they use small diameter so it doesn't go very high. So we're using 3-inch, 4-inch. They would move to 5- and 6-inch diameters, which would actually go higher. So the viewing would be more accessible, a lot longer range. And our current pricing right now wouldn't allow for a very long or spectacular one, but as Eric said, we've got an offer of a donation to increase that. So that increased money plus the increased size would give us a pretty good 4th of July fireworks demonstration at this location.
Thank you, Todd. Any questions for either Todd or Eric?
What sort of I don't want to use the word warning because it's the wrong thing, but how much can we get out there of what we expect if we were to go forward with this for the protocol to be? I know Jeff's got a huge concern about that. And as much as I want to see this happen because I think it's so badly needed by so many people, obviously my biggest concern is the safety of everybody and not having large crowds. Can we get enough promotion, advertising, whatever out there to put what we expect, and how enforceable could that possibly be?
We could use a number of our usual channels, the Observer, perhaps businesses around town, social media, Front Porch Forum. With something like this, it's hard to anticipate how many people may attend. So it's
exactly
trying to get that messaging out there, but I know that a challenge is any enforcement of something like this with our staff and capacity, and asking staff to go out with potential crowd control with some of the risks involved. So I think it would really need to be driven by attendees to understand what the risks were, and what the protocols that need to be followed for it to be safe and successful.
And when Eric says staff, usually, well, in the past at Allenbrook, the staffing that's helped out with parking and stuff like that has been the camp staff. And I'm still uncomfortable with exposing them to the public and then putting them into the camp situation to work with the kids the next day. So I would not be asking them to do that. Plus, there's not enough to cover the areas of 2,500 parking spaces. So like Eric, alluded to, it would be up to the people to, make the proper choices and the right choices of keeping themselves safe as we try to do this. But we've offered an area where, they could view it very easily from, Maple Tree Place, where there may not be that large of groups of people if that's what they're afraid of, or stay in their cars. And there's a lot of different options. I think social media is the biggest one because everybody's going to share this with other communities, other friends and neighbors in other communities and such. So whatever we can get out to them in the way of education through our promotions and marketing would be important as well.
So, a couple questions, if you don't mind. Did I hear correctly? I forget if it was Eric or Todd. You were introducing the concept of there needs to be 6 feet between cars. Did I hear that correctly, or maybe I misinterpreted?
Yep, Jeff, that was the driving guidance that Deputy Secretary Brady directed me to for driving operations that they said to follow.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same as I reviewed this when I came back to the office here. Not knowing a consideration of parking spaces, when cars park, are they 6 feet apart generally? Do we need to not allow?
Well, judging by the number of dings, car door dings in my car, I'm going to guess most people typically don't. So I look at, that's just something to consider. Another thing, what time do the fireworks normally start at? Kind of the question I'm getting at, bottom line here is, will either one of those stores be open at the same time?
The fireworks normally start around 9:30 at night. I don't know the store hours. One of the things that when we were talking with Davis was the stores welcome that because they may get some business prior to or whatever else. And if there's any food or curbside or anything like that going on by restaurants, they welcome this. They had done this years ago in this location, and the businesses were very favorable of it from what he explained to us.
Okay. And sorry, go on, Joy.
No, please, you were in the middle. I'll follow up though. I do have a comment.
And that was another question I had is will there be vendors there? Or are you in?
No, go ahead, Jeff. No, it would just be the fireworks. So our normal vendors and DJ for music and stuff like that would be canceled because those would be in one location. And we wouldn't want people coming to those. And also with, I wouldn't want to put vendors where there may be businesses open and compete with them. That is, we're kind of their guest to use their parking lot. So I wouldn't promote that.
Okay.
And my last say the comment I would have made would, I wouldn't want to see a lot of curbside food because that's going to encourage people to get out of their cars.
Yep. And my last question is first of all, the properties we're talking about are right next to the interstate. And we're also talking about bigger, better fireworks, which will have a bigger, larger, I don't know what the right word is, but maybe impact on folks driving on the interstate. Distraction might be a way to put that. has anybody checked that with, I don't know who you would check with, Department of Transportation, State Police, whether this is a good idea to hold fireworks this close to the interstate?
Jeff, it's a good question. But we can follow up on that piece of it. We haven't had a communication with them at this point.
Yeah, just knowing myself as a driver.
Jeff, if I can chime in a little bit, we did think of the airport. I'm surprised you didn't mention that.
Those F-35s are going to have something to practice around.
Right. In 2001 was when they had the fireworks display down there, and that was not an issue. They did contact the airport, and we would do so again this time.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
And likewise, we didn't have any complaints or questions from the Department of Transportation for that 2001 fireworks display either.
Yeah. Okay, good.
For what it's worth, if you're flying over them, it's really wicked cool.
Oh, it is.
It's really cool to sit and look
Yeah.
down at them. But the other thing is that, I've seen it on the interstate when there's multiple shows, people literally pull off to the side.
Yeah.
And they stop so that they're not distracted from it and they watch. So I'd like to think that people would be smart enough to do that again.
Most probably.
I really want to see this happen, but I do have some pretty significant concerns about the mechanics of it. One is that my thought is that if we were going to do it, we would adopt the same criteria as the drive-in criteria that the state has. Those criteria right now say that the cars have to be 6 feet away from each other, which means, as I'm seeing it, that it's every other parking space. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, then that's going to cut back on half of the parking spaces that are there, at the same time that we are not doing much to enforce any of this, and at the same time that a lot of people from other towns are going to come because they don't have fireworks this year and we do. So that brings up another question of staffing and who would staff this, because it's Wild West. That's a really significant concern for me. I was also thinking it's not necessarily related to those things, but pretty significant signage, perhaps, as people were pulling in parking areas, with like large signs that the town would have to create saying, these are the rules or some such thing. But that's making me wonder if the deadline that the company needs to know by this coming Friday. Eric, is that true?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, so I don't know how we could get the answers to those nuts and bolts questions. Contacting the state police about the interstate issue, which probably is not any big deal, but maybe something we should find out, figuring out how we're going to actually staff this if we are, and I think we should somehow, and how we're going to do some kind of enforcement, even if it's just social embarrassment enforcement. And I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that so that we can have this happen by the 4th of July. One of the things I'm wondering about is, would it be possible to, the 4th of July is a Saturday this year, maybe do it either the week or 2 weeks after that. I know from our own personal family experience that a lot of people are not doing much this summer. So, the locals are probably going to be around in the week or two, even after the 4th. But so, I guess I'd sum up what I said is that, can we pull this off by the 4th of July? Meaning, can we really pull this off by this coming Friday to give the determination? Or do we think we can in making the decision tonight? And secondly, how are we going to get the nuts and bolts of all of this done? Todd, you have a massive staff, I know.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe we could just throw it to you.
Well, the 4th of July celebration does already fall on the Recreation and Parks Department, but there's a lot of pieces to it, whatever else. And the summer staff helps with that. And again, as I said before, I'm not comfortable with putting them out into the public and then in turn having them work in camp the next day. So it's not available, to us. You're right in the sense of pulling this all together. Right now, our department is working on getting camps open and making sure that we're doing that safely and getting staff training. So it's kind of where the priority is, and camps start June 22nd for us. So we would definitely need some help if we're going to make this happen for the 4th. If it's prolonged and put off for a couple of weeks or whatever, or looked at the end of the summer, they're all possibilities.
Yeah, if I can chime in here, if the board is looking for a heavily staffed event, we're just not in a position to provide that. We just don't have the personnel or the ability to do that. And if the board's inclined to want to postpone it, I've asked Todd and Eric to begin working on developing a community celebration for the Labor Day weekend. Now, whether or not that includes fireworks, but that is, at least it's an opportunity if the board does want to postpone it. My suggestion would be to postpone it for that date to coincide with the community celebration that we're already planning for that weekend.
And we could still hold it we could try to still hold it at this location. So we have the parking lots and the social distance, and things may become, may change in the state guidelines as we're moving forward here compared to where we are today, right now. It just over the last week or so, it's moved from groups of 10 to groups of 25. And we hear down the road, it's going to move to groups of 50. So, the further we put it out, the more likely we'll get favorable of situations that we're looking for. And like I said, we could use the same site. So we're doing the same thing, but just doing it on a different day.
I think the only thing I throw in, while I completely and totally respect everything that's being said, and I really do, I just feel as a community, as a state, as a nation, somehow something needs to be done sooner than Labor Day. This is, you just have a community that's desperate, and I completely understand what we're up against and that the 4th of July is going to be tough. But boy, I wish we could do it before Labor Day. That is such a long way away for so many people.
Rick, can I ask? I'm sorry, Joey.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
I know that the police work a lot of hours on the 4th of July, providing, security. I'm assuming that would be the same situation for this. And the reason I'm asking it, I don't want to delay our already extended meeting by telling an anecdote, but if I could do super quick. My wife and I were waiting to get into Walmart a couple of weeks ago, and there was a guy in front of us and his wife, and they did not have masks on, and everybody else did. And the lady they were crowding the lady in front of them. And the lady in front of them turned and said, "Could you back up? You're more than 6 feet close to me." And the guy said, "Well, there's plenty of room. You go up in front. You get away from me." And he was really aggressive and scary looking guy. And I thought, that if that happens, in one of these parking lots, is there going to be a sufficient and adequate police presence, not only through calling 911, but also through just, a visible deterrent? So that's my question. And then secondly, if we did delay it, would that mess up police schedules so that we wouldn't have adequate police?
Well, first of all, regardless of when we hold the event, there will be an increased police presence. We will need it for traffic control, if nothing else. And so I would say it really doesn't matter when we hold it as much. We'll provide the staffing necessary for a large gathering of people, a large number of cars, just as we have in other years.
So I think it doesn't matter when we have it, we're going to have the same problems. The question becomes, I think, is July 4th too early for us to actually make all the arrangements that need to be made? So we need to have some kind of direction to the staff tonight as to whether to proceed or not.
Well, can I?
I'm sorry, Terry, say that again.
From the beginning, I said, no matter what we have this, I think we're going to have the same types of problems. I would presume that we'll still have social distancing even in September. Maybe we'll even see a recurrence of the virus from September or October. So I don't think it makes a lot of difference when we have it. At least we're going to have the same difficulties.
Well, I'm definitely feeling like holding it on the 4th is not achievable. I don't know what else to really add to that. Between safety concerns being the primary factor, but also the logistics, some of the issues that need to be addressed and may or may not be able to be addressed in that time, such as staffing.
Thoughts?
Well, I think the logistics and the safety concerns are pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And my thought is that if, the ideal safety scenario here would that we'd have, lots of people guiding, helping park, like some of these events that you go to where there are 9 different people waving you where to park.
Yeah.
And then you always run afoul of somebody and they yell at you or whatever. I don't think that's realistic. And I don't even know if that's absolutely required. I think if we could get the word out that, it is every other parking space, and if we could somehow maybe ask the store to help facilitate that in some fashion. If we could, make sure that people know that, if they get out of their cars, they're not to walk around and mingle or, I don't know. That I think is probably as good as we're going to do. And if that comports to the drive-in movie guidelines that the state is putting out there, then I'm okay with it. I'm not super great with it, but I think it would probably be okay. I mean, the guidelines are changing. It is now 25 people in an area. Before it wasn't. So, I mean, again, though, it comes to communication and getting the word out that this really is what is expected of you if you go to this thing. So, and if we can do that, if we can commit tonight that we could do that, so that we can give them an answer by their Friday deadline, then I'd be comfortable with doing that. If it will take the town people, staff longer than July 3rd to facilitate the communication and talk to the store owners and the property owners and everybody else that they need to talk to, then it would not bother me to say that we could do this on July 18th or something like that.
It sounds like JL Davis would probably be a big component of getting that word out as well, because it sounds like they would like this to happen for any number of reasons for the rest of us. I wonder how we feel about that. I have to agree with Ted with what he said. I don't think it's our job to police this 100%. I mean, we can't. We don't have the ability to do that. No place would. But I agree with what you said, Ted.
So the question before us is tonight, are we going to do this on the 4th of July or not? If we're not, we can debate this at some other point in time as to when it's going to happen. Do we have consensus, a majority about continuing on July 4th or not?
Do we think we can get the communication out?
I can't see that I'm going to be able to say, yes, I agree tonight. Not with what I know, not with what I feel. So it's the question of the others.
I don't want to give up until I have to, so I would still be trying to push forward.
Good for you.
So we had an email from Gordon who's supported going forward with July 4th. He's not here to have listened to the debate tonight. So a strong vote.
Oh, Terry, can I ask before we do that, could we hear from Eric and Rick on whether a really intense communication effort could be made both by the town and a request for an intense communication effort to be made by J.L. Davis and the stores, again, either by July 4th, July 18th, something like that. Is that something that's possible to do before I make a decision?
Well, we could ask Rick and Eric that.
So I'll start. I think the communication part we can do. And the part that's, well, the enforcement issue is the big thing. We can ask people all kinds of things, but for example, parking every other parking spot, that's going to be a tough one. How do you even do that? You put cones out in every other parking space. Well, those get moved, and plus we don't have enough cones. We don't have 25 for 1,400 cones or whatever they take. So it's just a matter of self-enforcement, people. We could ask people to stay in their cars or right in front of their cars. Most will probably do that, but some won't. And we're not in any position to really enforce any of that. I don't think anyone could. But people have to make judgments for themselves too, it's not an easy call for sure.
Yeah, I would echo Rick's comments. The communication, we can invest some money in it too for some targeted advertising, but the thing there is you don't want to cast a really wide net because you don't want to have too many people come, but you want your people who will come, primarily our residents, to focus on, know where the options would be to view it, and give them a map and say, hey, here's some vantage points. These are the criteria you've got to follow if you're going to come out. I echo Rick's sentiment that the enforcement piece will be the challenging, deciding what do we want to in the event and what's the town's role to intercede at what point.
It does occur to me that if one is concerned, as I would be, to be in a crowd like that, if you drove there, you can stay in your own car, and that might provide you, with the. I should think that would. I have not heard of a case of somebody being infected by staying in their car and somebody coughed outside the car or something like that. I mean, I don't want to add to, carbon emissions or anything, but if it's a hot night, people will probably have their engines on and probably have their windows up and their air conditioners on. This is kind of a unique circumstance, and, maybe this time that's okay. I don't know.
Any further discussion before we take a struggle? For those who are in favor of proceeding on July 4th, raise your hand. So we have 3 out of 4, which is a consensus of majority anyway, that we'll try to proceed with July 4th. Well, thank you, Todd. Let's move on to
Brook,
culvert construction options. And I think we have Bruce on the line somewhere.
Yep, I'll get Bruce connected here. Hey, Bruce, you just need to unmute.
Okay. So we're here to just talk about Muddy Brook Culvert construction. A memo that I wrote on the 27th. Here he goes again. Hold on a second, please.
I'm sure the dog was quiet all night long until just now.
What's that noise?
Okay, he actually was pretty quiet most of the day. So the Muddy Brook Culvert, you guys have already picked the alternative. The alternative's being defined. But this comes down to, we looked at two options on how to construct the project. And one of them comes up with a road closure of approximately 3 months, at close to the original estimate. And option two would be to keep the bridge in place and allow them to work under it. Excuse me, I'm out of breath. For only 3 weeks of closure and detour. And even though that may sound better for the traveling public, it actually makes it a little bit more, it makes it a lot more difficult for the construction and add $500,000 to the project. So what this is to, let you guys know that there's these two options, and that we believe that option one, which is the one closer to the original estimate, but with a longer closure, is still the one that we should go with.
We should also point out that South Burlington considered the same very issue yesterday at their council meeting and agreed with what Bruce just said.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's right. They did that last night and came up with, and they chose option one, which is the longer detour. Actually, the detour originally was at 5 months, and we've looked at ways of shortening that time period to 3 months. And the detour is actually a really short duration or short detour. So,
if I remember correctly, and I'm not arguing against option one, believe me, but I just want to point out, if I remember correctly, when the bridge was temporarily shut down because of that storm event, we received a fair amount, I don't know if it was a lot, but a fair amount of complaints about the traffic on Route 2 caused by that detour. And then the other thing I'll point out is, and again, I'm not necessarily moving us off option one, but V-Trans, for instance, will go sometimes to great length to accommodate traffic. They'll pave the interstate at night. They'll do those types of things in order to accommodate traffic. But in this case, and it's not even necessarily just the money, it's more to me the quality of the construction that you'll be able to get by removing the temporary bridge and building the new bridge in the best possible scenario to do that.
If I may make 2 points. First of all, the traffic situation was bad when the bridge was first closed, but it sorted itself out and got better later on.
Okay.
Not entirely better, but got somewhat better. The second point is that because of the pandemic, people's work situations have changed dramatically. In fact, I know someone who was very inconvenienced by the bridge closure. He's not inconvenienced at the moment because he's working at home. I suspect that those work patterns, whether people change those and go back to work, it's fine. But if there's inconvenience and travel problems, they can go back to working from home again, I would think. So I think it's a little bit less of a problem than it was before.
Okay, Bruce, when's construction due to start?
Well, we'd like it to start next year. I mean, it's still with some permitting issues and
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so it's still a year's away.
A year at least, next construction season at the earliest.
Yeah, okay.
What would happen if we decided on option 2 in South Burlington was with number 1?
That's a good question, Terry.
Well, we'd have to go back to our taxpayers for more money, perhaps, because we don't have enough money to do the project.
Yeah.
That's number one. And number two.
Oh, the answer is clear, Terry. They would, on our side of the culvert, they would keep the temporary bridge. On South Burlington Tide, they would remove it.
Either that or South Burlington would say, okay, Wilson, you want it? You pay for it.
Yeah.
Right. Very well said.
Yeah.
So we need to give your staff direction. Is there any objections by the board with going on with option 1?
None.
None for me.
Nope.
Okay, we can move on then.
Right. Thank you, Bruce.
Bruce will probably be with us a little bit longer to talk about.
Sorry. That's right. Yes, we got. Yes.
So let's move on to permit fee schedule for fiscal year 2021. And we have both Matt and Bruce talking about things, I believe, on this one. So Bruce, you're here. Why don't you start talking about the stuff that we need to talk about for you?
Well, for me, it's actually underneath the user fees more than the permit fee schedule. That's more Matt in planning and zoning.
Oh, okay.
So, or maybe we should just do water and sewer first, and stormwater.
We can do the user fee and charge. Yeah, if you'd like to.
No, we'll do that first.
And I wanted to
right here, right now.
I wanted to point something out too. The schedule that was submitted originally as part of the agenda packet, there were some errors in that. I have corrected those errors, and the new form is posted on the town's website and in the Dropbox. So if you're looking at from either of those sites, then you've got the correct copy. But if you're looking at the version that you got over the weekend, that is the incorrect version.
Hang on, it's going to take me a second to get there.
And Bruce can explain a couple of the changes. Bruce found a couple more changes that I needed to be made as well.
Okay, under the public works items on that, there are no changes in the right-of-way permit fee schedule. Just there for that, those all stay the same. The ones that are water and sewer rates, the only change is the sewer. Went up to $7.12 per thousand gallons from 702. That was an increase of just 10 cents per thousand gallons. Water rate is staying the same. That's the user rates. The basic user charge, and I apologize, I don't have the fee schedule that Rick did up in front of me. I did see it earlier, but the residential water, $574 per quarter. Commercial is $11.49 per quarter, and the sewer increases is $15.79 per quarter. That's all the basic user charges, and those were all increased based on the CPI. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, and those were all part of the budget we approved.
That's correct.
Was a couple meetings ago. Yeah. Okay. That's why I always like doing these, is because we basically already approved these, not formally, but when we did the budget.
Right. So there's no change. There's no change to the stormwater rates. We're keeping that at $4.25 per ERU. sixth year of the stormwater budget. And when we originally put it together, we thought we'd get away with 5 years. And actually, we're going into year 6 without any changes. So that's a good thing. And the only other one then are the water sewer connection fees, which are $7.09 for residential for water and $8.06 for sewer. And if you're looking at the other one, it was $8.03. It was a mistake, but it's actually $8 for sewer for residential industrial connection rates. And yeah, and the water 709. Excuse me, and they were all based on a CPI of 1.60 as well.
Bruce, the other change that I corrected was on the base charges for water and sewer. Those are in the proposal, the latest proposal, those are consistent with your memo.
Right.
They were not on there before.
Oh, okay.
Are there questions for Bruce on the requested changes? There is none. Motion would be in order.
I also, before the board votes or offers a motion, I just want to also mention that the fire rates are on that schedule as well, and no changes are proposed for next fiscal year in those rates.
That's part of the memo too. That would be part of the motion. So this is a motion. These are these. Number 12.
I'd move to adopt the municipal use fee schedule for fiscal year 2021 as proposed.
Second.
Gave you your opportunity.
Motion made and seconded. Are there any discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. They concur with that. Okay. So we're looking at, and I think the planning and zoning.
Yep, I got Matt connecting now. He'll be with us moment.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Hey, Matt.
Okay. So, on a second, I hope that seeing the revised fee sheet for the planning commission or for planning and zoning fees.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So we are not proposing any changes to our permit fees as those have remained fairly sustainable. You note several proposed increases to some of our certificates of compliance. And I just want to note, these are only when a new home is constructed or when a new commercial building is constructed or new commercial occupancy is created with significant renovation. This represents less than 10% of our permit traffic that generates the requirement for an in-person inspection by P&Z staff and often by myself. And the reasoning behind raising these fees somewhat is that we're finding that they take a little more time to perform than they once were. We're often inspecting one house in a new development, but finding that we need to take a walk around the totality of the development to make sure that there's compliance on the common lands and with good construction practices happening and things like that. That said, the largest percentage increase would be the doubling of the temporary certificate of compliance. And again, this is related to the amount of time that those requests generate. This temporary compliance typically happens on either a multi-tenant residential or large commercial building. It happens when a builder has not generally been able to complete the required improvements on the site, like the landscaping or even some of the finished materials on the site, but otherwise is ready to and wants to go ahead and occupy. So the inspection to provide that temporary certificate is not usually too difficult, but keeping track of all of those projects out there that have temporary certificates, and then reminding those builders and developers, often several times, that they do need to complete their final improvements has become a bit of a time suck for us. And we would like to capture a little bit of that while also really incentivizing folks to schedule their construction in a way that they're really truly 100% done with the project before they need to come and get their certificate and occupy. Chasing down a building that was complete maybe a year ago for its landscaping can be a real challenge. And so that's the justification for those. I did look around a little bit at neighboring communities. It's a little bit hard to compare in that bigger places do more of a public safety inspection that's tied in with their local authority over the fire marshal. And many, if not most, communities do not perform a certificate of compliance inspection on new single-family residential. We've done that for as long as I've been here and before, and see it as a value, that someone from planning and zoning is going and seeing that unit when it's completed and saying that it was completed per the permit conditions. The goal here is to just mostly try to capture the added staff time we're seeing coming out of these inspections, and also really encourage our larger projects to complete everything on the site before they're go and occupy, and really try to schedule things that way. You will see some comments down below related to the impact fees, simply that I did edit and change those numbers. Those changes are ensconced in the bylaw. We don't ask for approval on those. You've already approved them as part of the schedules that are in our bylaw chapters, but I didn't want to note that you'd see changes there. And then the last item is just an updating of reflecting the clerk's fee for Mylar recording when somebody records a plat, which increased from $15 to $25. And we just wanted to identify that. Very, very rarely we have somebody who asks to record something that's not related to a set of otherwise approved final plans. So we have that fee there for that. 99% of the time when a Mylar is being recorded, that recording is being captured as part of our final plan fee, which is back up in the discretionary permits fees at $350. So we just include the 25 in that. But once in a great while, probably once a year, somebody records a Mylar without a final plan and is able to do that. Okay. So that's what I have.
Just one question. Real quick, briefly, the 3 certificates, other than the temporary certificate of compliance, I notice one says after occupancy. Those certificates, is it typical that they just have to get one certificate, or are there cases where they have to get more than one non-temporary certificate? Or
no, the aim is to do one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
And so after occupancy would mean somebody just completely ignored the requirement to get it before occupancy, which is what the bylaw requires. And now if you're going out to inspect, new residential, you're in somebody's house.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I get it. Yeah. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions for that? Rick?
I was looking at the schedule just now, and I didn't see the waiver of fee for the special event permits.
There is a motion.
Is that a separate motion?
It's a separate motion under number 11.
Oh, I thought it was in the fee schedule. I'm sorry.
Rick, I pulled out, so they would be effective now before the turn of the fiscal year.
Oh, good point. Yep. Yep.
There are two motions suggested. So we deal with them separately. That would be helpful.
I'd move to adopt the permit fee schedule for fiscal year 2021 as proposed.
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motions, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. And is it approved? And we have a second motion recommended.
I'd move to waive the administrative and special event permit fees related to COVID-19 adaptations during the current state of emergency, including temporary outdoor seating for restaurants, outdoor retail sale areas, drop-off and pickup areas, and on-site signage associated with those temporary operations.
Second.
Sorry, discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we've completed the permits. Right. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. See ya.
Good evening.
You too. Bye.
So the last thing on the agenda is, again, other business, and that is in relationship to the email that I sent out to you this morning regarding the town manager selection process. And the recommendations from Bob and Alan Gould are before you. There were a couple of things that weren't in the email that we did talk about. One was on the finalists. We just discussed that Rick would be involved in the follow-up after we would do an interview of the finalists. They would be interviewed by whatever number of staff members we had in mind, and then Rick would have an opportunity to have an interview with them as well. The question, I guess, that I don't think we discussed today was the virtual tour. That we can worry about later on if we wish to. But is there any heartache about what is being proposed as far as the interviews for the semifinalists and the finalists?
So specifically June 13th, is that what I'm saying?
Well, that's what we're looking at right now. That's the earliest that they could do it and we could do it. But it seems like if we're going to be on any kind of a track to get this done so we can have a new town manager in mid-July or late July, we need to start going right now.
Yeah.
So June 13th would be a Saturday. Right now, it would look like we would have probably 5 candidates that day, and our goal would be to narrow the field from there down to 2 or 3.
Okay. And I mean, so the first question is does July 13th work? And
yep.
It appears
June 13th.
June 13th. My feeling is it's not great, but we need to do it. I mean, not great that it's going to take a whole Saturday, but we need to do it. So that's the first part. Second part is it was unclear to me, were some of the candidates going to actually travel to Williston to do these interviews, or would these all be virtual?
At this point, we're looking at all but one traveling here to meet with us in person, providing we can do that with the state guidelines.
I mean,
yes, we can.
Yeah, unless they get stricter versus looser, it sounds like we can do them.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to highly recommend we do something like get pizzas for lunch or something, because
we can figure that out. But,
yeah.
Yes. Any other comments? Because I'll need to communicate back to Bob tomorrow.
Sounds like fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, those of us who feel isolated, it's a way to break out of that a little bit.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, then I will communicate back with Bob tomorrow morning. And is there any other business tonight?
No, but just a thank you to the board for even trying to figure out a way through this fireworks thing, whether or not it actually works. I just really appreciate the discussion.
Yes, thank you very much indeed.
Welcome.
If there's
if I can chime in too.
Yes, please.
Eric and Todd did a lot of work in
I
a
bet they
very
did.
short period of time. So
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see they did.
Yeah.
Please, yeah, I know Eric is still on, but please let everybody know how how we are of that.
And also it was impressive, JL Davis, stepping up to the plate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very. If there's no other business, then we're adjourned.
Night,
Night,
everybody.
everyone.